All righty, Jack. What's up, man? How we doing?
Doing great. After watching that, doing great.
Yeah, we decided we were going to do Jack's a diehard Broncos fan. We were like, you know what? Let's do the pod after the Broncos game. We'll recap it. I'm sure there'll be a lot of exciting things to talk about. It won't be a 26-3. What the hell's going on right now? Blowout that nobody wants to watch. But nonetheless, here we are. So I guess the first thing is, are you guys any good, or is this just an indictment on the Saints tonight?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think it means we're capable of beating. We're not a bad team because we do this to bad teams. So that in of itself is a win, I would say. Still some like offensive struggles to work through. Obviously the Saints run defense is awful. Bo Nix carved them up on the ground, and Williams had 2 rushing touchdowns. So on the ground, like they're terrible. But also I feel like our run scheme has been pretty good.
All right, let's start first with let's kind of stay on the Broncos for a second, then we'll get to the Saints. Javonte Williams, I like him. Guys are open, positive. Bo Nix, mixed bag. What would be the biggest thing he can improve upon? Like just watching him run around, in my opinion, excuse me, and then I want to get your thoughts, is the pocket awareness. If he would just stay in the pocket for an extra half a second, I think his feet are just too jittery. That's my main takeaway.
Yeah, I agree completely. That some decision-making things like don't need to put the ball in a place the receiver can make a play. That's really all you need to do. I feel like he tries to get a little too cute sometimes when he's throwing the ball, and really it's just like give your guy a shot.
Yeah, so not a lot to go through in this particular game, but yeah, the way it all played out, if you didn't see it, it was ugly from the beginning. It could have been a lot worse. Just the Broncos, when they run the ball, they look efficient. Nix, good enough to get it done. Defensively, though, I will say the pass rush and the blitzing is kind of what I was hoping, what I saw with my Ravens last year, what I thought would be replicable with my Seahawks at McDonald. But I don't know. Denver's defense feels like that's the strongest part of the team.
Yeah, I mean, Vance Joseph's done a great job. I don't know if you remember. He was actually the head coach of the Broncos, got fired. And Peyton brought him on to be the DC, and he is dicing it up. It's amazing. There was some stat last year. I mean, if you take out that 70-point drubbing that the Dolphins gave us last year, we were at like top 3, top 5 defense. So, the potential's always been there. And he's finally executing. We finally have the personnel in the right spot. We've got a good corner opposite of Surtain, and the secondary looks really good. And then the pass rushers are getting home. So, defensively, we can compete with anybody as long as we can put points on the board.
What's the schedule? Do you know off the top of your head? What are you guys looking at the next few weeks?
I know we got the Ravens coming up. I don't know if that's next week or the week after. The Panthers are on the schedule there in November.
Yeah, so you got the Panthers at home next week, and then at Baltimore, at Kansas City. So next week, put you at 5-3. Somehow split those. Feels like you're a playoff team. If not, you're 5-5, and then it's kind of a situation, right?
Yeah, kind of like we went over with the bottom part of the AFC. There's a lot to look into. The Jets lost again. Obviously getting Devontae Adams is kind of a win, but it's more like a moral victory. Like they lost, like they're kind of falling out of it a little bit. And losing to the Chargers the first time definitely stinks, but we get them again later in the season. And so if we split that, we're in a good spot. So
yeah. So,
and then split the Chiefs somehow. That's a win. And if we can do those things, we're in the playoffs.
It was a game tonight that you felt like you had to win because this Saints team is terrible. Now, look, I didn't know Dennis Allen's been there since 2006. Like he's been there, excuse me, he's been there forever. He's got to go. He seems like a nice guy. I don't know what the problem is, but what is going on? Their rush defense is absolutely terrible. Like you were talking about, Denver's just running right up the middle. They got a bunch of injuries, but at the same time, they're dropping interceptions or can't make tackles. They can't put Bo Nix on the ground. The Jets just got rid of Salah. The Saints I don't even know what they have to look forward to. It feels like they should trade Kamara and just be done with it. Like, is there any path forward for the Saints?
They started 2-0 this year. Like they were a legitimate, like, what is going on down there in New Orleans? And then now it's the other side. What is going on down there in New Orleans? So like there's definitely potential there. I mean, they look like a powerhouse coming in those first 2 wins against 2 pretty solid teams. So I mean,
Who they beat the second week again? And now I'm forgetting. They
yeah.
beat the Cowboys the first week. Or was the Cowboys the second? They beat the Cowboys the second week, and they beat the Panthers, right?
Yeah.
So now that we look back on that, no one's. It's just
I guess that's a good point. Yeah, I mean the Cowboys look like terrible, and then the Panthers kind of have something going with Andy Dalton. Kind of. I don't know.
But yeah, if you do look back at that game, they turned the ball over. So if you want to really look at the Saints, it was like everybody apparently can score in Dallas against the Cowboys, and the Panthers turned the ball over. That was the Bryce Young game. Your Broncos just had a touchdown. And yeah, man, what a terrible game. I told everybody this morning that's a 50-50 game. Stay away from it. It's been like the opposite of a 50-50 game. This is like one of those games where the Saints have had no chance to win the entire time. It's like a dream game to bet on the Broncos. Meanwhile, the Broncos could have won by 80. They're just settling for field goals. What a brutal game. At least my Dodgers 7-2. Good. So we got that. You see the end of the Yankees game, by the way, today?
I did not know.
Woo, Guardians are down to their last out, 5-3. Hit a 2-run homer to tie it, and then win it with a walk-off in the 11th. So
wow.
It was an entertaining night with the Yankees, and then the Dodgers was entertaining, and then I've had this game on. Like, all right, Jack, I guess we can record now. We don't have to wait.
Yeah, same thought here.
All right, so Saints suck. Broncos are not going to win the Super Bowl, but they might get the 6 or the 7 seed. Let's move on. Huh?
Sneaky. They're a sneaky team. Fun team.
All right, we're going to wrap it up with a couple of the college football thoughts, but let's finish off the NFL here. Yeah, I did a little pod on the Jets and then the Bills. Obviously, two teams going in completely different directions. Bills get Amari Cooper. My take on it, and then I want to get yours, is Amari Cooper, quiet, already got paid, should fit in perfectly fine, doesn't demand the ball. Seems like he couldn't be happier to leave Deshaun Watson, just would be a natural reaction. Devontae Adams, on the other hand, bad vibes, bad teammate, now goes to a bad vibes, bad energy situation. They go at Pittsburgh on Sunday Night Football. Let's start there. What do you think of the Jets, and how do you see that playing out Sunday Night Football? They have to beat Pittsburgh, and that's a tough spot.
That is a tough spot. Pittsburgh probably has the best defense in the NFL, and that is a very tough spot. I mean, they kind of have the weapons now. Like, they already had a good receiving core with Mike Williams. Lazard has had a pretty solid year so far. Obviously, Garrett Wilson. I've always kind of been of the opinion that Garrett Wilson was not a true number one. He could be a 1B, which is what he will be with Devontae Adams. But I don't think he's maybe not yet. Maybe he's not a true number one yet. And so I think bringing in Devontae Adams, that's a big step. Him and Rodgers always they have the rapport already, and Wilson will be able to learn a little bit from a seasoned Hall of Fame vet.
Totally agree, but they essentially doubling down on what they already do the best anyway. Yeah, they got the weapons, but this is a nightmare matchup. You got to keep as many. I thought the Jets need tight end help, keep the blockers in. Just let Rodgers have an extra second or two to figure it out. And a lot like what we saw with Denver tonight, like, who are the weapons on the Broncos? Do you even know everybody? I mean, maybe you know them off the top. Yeah.
I mean, I do, but nobody else does. The Jets have the skill, and I don't know if Saleh was the problem or not. I guess we'll learn about that in a little. They do benefit from the division being kind of weak. I mean, the Dolphins are starting Huntley or Skylar Thompson every week.
Right.
So, I mean, they get a freebie kind of there. And then, I mean, obviously the Patriots are not very good either.
What about on the other side, though? Like, Buffalo, to me, went from, all right, let's make it the Josh Allen, kind of rebuild the identity, to, man, the defense is actually better than we thought it was going to be. It's over improved. So let's get him another receiver because we can actually win the Super Bowl this year. I think the prevailing wisdom going into the season was Buffalo's not a Super Bowl contender. They just lost too much. But now, is Cooper enough to be like, damn, the Bills are really good? Or where are you at with Buffalo?
I mean, Kincaid's coming into his own as a tight end. I mean, they're pretty formidable, I would say. Pretty solid on the ground, good balance. I mean, I like McDermott as a coach. Some people don't. I like McDermott as a coach. And yeah, their defense has always been stifling. They have a great home field advantage, which you cannot sell enough in the NFL. Like some of these places, it's like, yeah, you're traveling. And I mean, I talk about that in college. Like you're flying private jets, you're getting there early, blah, blah, blah. Buffalo and Green Bay are two. And I mean, I'd probably throw Arrowhead in there too. Some of the hardest places to play if you're a visiting team. And
What
so
do you,
you cannot sell that enough because, like, I mean, if they're hosting 3-4 playoff games, or I guess 3 playoff games this year, like that makes a big difference.
yeah, I really couldn't believe Buffalo. Talk about run defense tonight. Jets run defense sucks. Bills are just running the ball all over them without James Cook. Bills seem like a nightmare to play. I like McDermott Monday through Saturday. I'm not a fan on Sunday. I think that holds him back. But then again, Josh Allen might be good enough to overcome it. Bills really improved with Cooper. That they clearly needed one more guy. If you just watch, it's a different than the Mahomes offense because again, McDermott, he works on the defensive side. Reed and Sean Payton, it's almost like you just put whoever. Some of these offensive guys are so good that Chiefs will put 3 tight ends out there against San Francisco and they'll figure it out. But Buffalo, Josh Allen, he's not as disciplined. He's got to move around. So you need one more receiver. I like that. Well, let's go to the Chiefs and 49ers. What a game. There's so much happening this weekend with baseball playoffs and, this Chiefs 49ers game. It's like, wait a second. We have such short memories. What a great Super Bowl. At least a great quarter and a half to end it if you want to include the overtime. Perfect spot for the 49ers. I think conventional wisdom has the Niners winning this game. They are the favorite, but I will never bet money against the Chiefs. I know you hate the Chiefs. Go ahead. Can you make the argument for the Niners this weekend?
I mean, Chiefs are banged up, obviously. Kelsey's getting old. You can make the arguments all you want, but Pat Mahomes is kind of inevitable. They always are. They have some sort of opportunity to win every football game, and you don't want to bet against Mahomes in that state. Like the Niners on paper should win. You're 100% right, but you can't bring yourself to fade that guy. It's unbelievable.
It really is. I thought Purdy, I said it before because I watched that whole Seahawks game. Very impressed with Purdy. Just don't know. Feels like so much pressure on the Niners to win this game because they're 3-3. I don't like it for them. I wish they're 3-3, right? Yeah, I think
but I mean, they'll be fine. They're making the playoffs, period. Like they're going to find a way. I think their schedule eases up a little bit down the stretch. Like if they lose, it's definitely not like fire alarms going off in San Francisco.
Couple things to throw at you outside of that game because I think that game is just must-see TV. Have to watch it. What are we doing here with the Falcons? Falcons only 3-point favorites against the Seahawks. Even I'm down on the Seahawks right this second. I feel like everybody's pretty high on the Falcons. They're only 3-point favorites. Seattle's got to go all the way to Atlanta. You have a thought? There's a couple games where I was looking at the spreads early this week, and I was like, man, that seems a little odd. What am I missing? What are you thinking about that? Why are the Falcons only 3-point favorites?
I don't know. I'm pretty high on the Falcons. Kirk's got some things to work through, as does any quarterback that makes a big switch like that, comes in and is expected to be that guy to lead him to the promised land. Like he's got some work to do. And so there are going to be growing pains. And I think that that's kind of where that line reflects that is, yeah, Kirk might throw a bad pick or two, and then they have a chance to win in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, it feels like a good spot for if you like the Falcons, I was telling people, bet them. That's pretty much the advice I look for during the week is if I think a line's going to move. I don't know who's going to win the game yet, but I would assume, if anything, that be 3.5 or 4 points by the time they kick it off.
Yeah, value now.
Packers, Texans, probably the game of the week. You just said, certain home field advantage or certain home field advantages. Packers are one. Texans never playing Green Bay. But I put Stroud, I think, on the Mahomes category where I just don't want to bet against them. Very impressed with them last week. What do you think about this game? Are the Packers, we've talked about it, like the Packers ceiling is as high as anybody. Dominated Arizona. I was wrong about that last week. You have a read on this game?
Yeah, like the Packers, like them in Lambeau. I mean, hard to bet against them. I do kind of agree with what you're saying with Stroud. He's just got a couple steps to take. And I think this is going to be a really big test, and we'll learn a lot about this Texans team in this game.
Last game to throw at you is Lions of Vikings. My thoughts on this one is if you like the Lions, to bet them now. We have the spread Vikings 1.5. This is my gambling read on it is people, if you've been on the Vikings out of the first 6 weeks, well, they played 5 games. So out of their 5 games, let's say you bet on them 3 or 4 times and you've won your money, you're happy. Part of you probably feels like, all right, let me just be done with it. And if you haven't bet them, we've all been there where it's like, I do not want to be the last one to the party. Like, I'd rather, like, as soon as I bet the Vikings, they'll lose. That's how I felt last week again, or 2 weeks ago against the Jets. I really liked the Vikings in that spot. It ended up turning into a 50-50 game at the end. The Vikings were dominant. Lions lose Hutchinson, but my thought is it doesn't hurt them right this second. Like, the adrenaline plus just the fact that, it's 1 week after. I think it's more of a hampering down the line. I like the Lions a lot. What are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I'm on agreed. Completely agree. Wrong team. This is a classic. The wrong team is favored. I think the Lions I would have them at like -2.5, -3 here, and I'll take that value all day long.
Yeah, I think the Vikings are destined for that 9-win spot. I just think that a lot of what they're doing on defense is great.
No, their schemes have been great, but they're one of those teams like the Eagles team, either last year or the year before, where they were like 9-0, 10-0, limped to like 10-7 or something, and lost in the first round. I think that was last year, actually.
Yeah, the Eagles, I think they were 11-1. I mean, that was they had a lot of other things going on. I think the Vikings just, I don't know, maybe. Now that I'm saying it out loud, now I'm getting a little nervous about it because it's like, yeah, keep saying that the Vikings aren't that good. Maybe they are. I'm curious to see how the game's going to play out. I just think it's a bad matchup for them. I think the Vikings are 9, maybe 10 wins, but that division's really good. I just think 5-0. I've seen it too many times where it's like these teams start off 5-0 and it just doesn't last.
Yeah, and you got to think it's Sam Darnold is still the quarterback. Like the same Sam Darnold that got benched at 3 different other teams. You got to think there's a little bit of that still in him. There's a little bit of Panther Sam Darnold still there, a little bit of Jet Sam Darnold still there. It's not like he's a new person.
They beat the Lions this week, and I will do a good.
I think an apology set up. Yeah.
Yeah. Not only that, but then I think it's time to say they're for real. But even if they lost this week, they could lose by 30. Still think they're the same team. I just think the Lions they're clicking here. So, all right. Obviously, I'll go through all the other games, but those were the ones that jumped out at me. Georgia's playing Texas. They're getting 4.5. They're getting 5 points. Talk to me here. Georgia at Texas, 7:30. Make the argument for Texas blowing them out, and then make the argument that Georgia wins the game. Start wherever you want.
Yeah, so actually very interesting. Georgia was a favorite a week ago. Georgia was about a 1.5, 2-point favorite. A lot of sharp money jumped on Texas. You can see that's why the line jumped. Also has to do a little bit with their performances this past week. I personally think Texas is overvalued. They could be legit and could prove me wrong. They played against an 18-year-old kid starting at quarterback for OU last week, like a team that's really discombobulated. You take the OU off of that team, and this is a little bit of it's a blowout, and it's an expected blowout. It's like a Mississippi State, kind of an Arkansas type team. They're not the OU that they normally are, and so they were a little bit overvalued there. I thought they would score 13 points, and they didn't. So that's on me from last week. In terms of Georgia, there are a lot of kinks to work out this year. There are a lot of things this year that they are doing that they have not been doing, a lot of stupid mistakes. And so if Texas were to blow them out, I think it's a script very similar to the Alabama game. Texas jumps on, and then they're kind of able to coast to a 2 or 3 score win versus Georgia turning on the Jets in the second half and then making it a game.
Can Texas run that football against Georgia? Because I'm of their belief every time I see Georgia playing night game on the road that I want to take the under. And luckily for me, I'm not betting college football this year because I would have had the under in Georgia, Alabama. I think you told me it was going to be high scoring. My gut tells me that, look, let me get my thoughts together. They give up all these points in Mississippi State. Whenever Georgia's defense feels like they have to prove something, I just assume they got the best players. I know they got the best defensive coach. They're going to Texas. It's 57.5 points. Is Georgia's defense just not as good this year? Like, what's going on?
Definitely a step back. I will say definitely a step back. That does not, the step back for Georgia is like easily the number 1 defense in the country to top 5. So you got to think about it like that. So like in the past 3 years, Georgia has had like pretty unanimously the number one defense in the country. Last year, you could debate it a little bit. The 2 years before that, not even a question. So this year, we've dropped a little bit to one of the best defenses in the country. And so you got to look at it that way. I think Ewers has to beat us through the air.
The rush defense for Georgia. If it's third and 6 and 3rd and 7 all night for Texas, you feel like you can win the game.
I feel like we can win the game kind of regardless as long as Beck plays well. But in terms of them beating our defense, I think he has to throw it. I don't think they're going to get these 5, 6, 7, 8 yard runs on first down and then be able to play that second and short RPO game.
Gotcha. So ultimately, how do you see it playing out?
I personally, I think Georgia's going to win it. I'm definitely a little biased. I'll admit that, but I think they actually have something to prove this week. I think that like there's a lot of people asking questions about the Kentucky game, about the Mississippi State game, about not being able to close the deal against Bama. I think Kirby's got the boys fired up, and I think they're going to come in there and they're going to show everybody that they're still the best team.
And that's also one of those games, as we talk about the playoff changing. I wouldn't bet Texas. Texas doesn't have to win the game. Georgia doesn't have to win it, but we're getting close. They can afford probably one more loss, and that's it. Maybe we'll see how it all plays out. I assume that 1-3 loss SEC team's going to sneak in there at the very end, but you don't really want to. You'd rather not be in that position if you don't have to.
Yeah, that's when those bid stealers that we talked about last time. That's when those come in. When like an 8-4 team goes and wins the ACC, and then all of a sudden you got Miami at 12-1, and you got this 8-4 team that goes and has to get in because they won the ACC. We're going to see that in one of those two conferences. And then, even maybe a 10-2 SEC team that's currently ranked number 11 gets bumped out because Boise State gets in. And then, some random ACC or Big 12 team goes and steals a bid.
So speaking of stealing bids, and in that situation, Tennessee and Alabama have already put themselves in that spot. They're in the same boat as Georgia, already have a loss. Games in Knoxville. What the hell's going on? I don't know what the hell's going on with Alabama. We can't figure it out. No one knows. It doesn't make much sense. They got the new coach. It's up and down. It's all over the place. They look like the best team in the world against Georgia in the first half. Then they blow the game. Then they come back. They lose to Vanderbilt. Where do you see this landing against Tennessee?
So Bama played the best half of football they have played in the past few years in the first half against Georgia. And since then, they've been outscored and outgained by half of Georgia, Vanderbilt, and South Carolina. Those are, the Georgia half is a little bit.
South Carolina. I'm sorry, I forgot the South Carolina game. Keep going.
Yeah, there was a 2-point conversion away from going to overtime against a very mediocre South Carolina team. Probably bowl eligible, but mediocre. And so Alabama needs a get-right week. And going to Neyland is not that. That is a terrible place to go try to get right. And so I'm going to say this now, but I'll release it later. I will be on Tennessee. I think Heupel having the experience in the SEC plays a big role. DeBoer, great coach, first year. He's learning the hard way. I have Tennessee here.
Tennessee beats Florida last week in overtime. This Florida coach is such a
He's playing with, he's keeping his job somehow. He's going to be employed next year. Just you watch.
I know, but play to win the game. Play to win the game. All right, Tennessee, they beat Florida, but the offense doesn't look great. It looks like, if you just look at the numbers, it's like, all right, they score 1 million points against the bad teams. Florida and Arkansas aren't the class of the SEC, but they can't score. That's probably why Alabama's favored by 3 points. How is Tennessee going to score against Alabama?
I've been to Neyland. It's probably the hardest place to play. And both times that I've been, we've been huge favorites. This game, they're 3-point underdogs. That place might burn down, and it is going to be so loud. And if you're into taking unders, that's an under that I would take because the Tennessee offense does not look great. But I don't know how well Alabama is going to be able to move the ball, how well they're going to be able to operate just because of how loud and how raucous it's going to be. I don't know if you remember, but that game there, they threw the goalpost into the river after they beat them. I think that was with Hendon Hooker a couple of years ago. But I mean, that it is going to be an insane atmosphere. I'm going to be on the Vols just because, like, I feel like that plays a huge difference. I think they should be favored, or it should be a pick 'em.
Yeah, the best environments are these historic programs where they haven't won forever. They're like just
Now they're
dominant.
finally like they're sneaky good, like they're decent. Like Tennessee, yeah, not a great resume so far. That loss really hurts. But like they know that they're still in it and they do have the talent. Tennessee finally has gotten to the point where they have the talent or close enough to the talent to compete with the Alabamas and the Georgias of the world.
Yeah, there's the rest of the slate. Those are the two best games. The rest of the slate, there's always going to be great games. It's college football. But was there anything else that jumped out at you where you're like, man, I can't wait to watch this game, or any particular, you'll get your props out or get your plays out for Saturday. But I was just wondering before I make you sit around here for some baseball talk, before we get out of here, if there was any other college games that jumped out at you.
No, I haven't. I haven't really done much analysis other than those two. I've deep dived into both of those games. Feel like there's an edge, especially with Tennessee there. But I know Illinois has a tough test, and yeah, we'll take a look at everything else.
Sweet. Well, yeah, let's I'll spend a couple minutes and I'll let you go. But yeah, the whole point of us recording tonight was mainly we were supposed to do a little bit longer here, Broncos and Saints recap, but
Not much to talk about. Yeah.
not much to talk about. And then it actually kind of worked out because tomorrow morning I forgot that I had a couple of obligations to get to. So it's not my nature to brag for 15 minutes anyway. So if I can go 4-0 one night, I'm going to be happy about it. But that's not the brand is for me to just brag. So I will, though, acknowledge that the Dodgers kicked the Mets' ass as I'm finishing recording this bottom of the eighth. So Dodgers are going to roll. That's great news. They'll play the Mets tomorrow night for Game 5. Don't know if I'll feel as strongly. I don't know if have you been watching, Jack, the baseball playoffs?
Yeah, a little bit. I think it's an inevitable Yankees, Dodgers.
You say that, but I mentioned it about 10, 15 minutes ago. The Guardians hit that walk-off today to stave off elimination. I won't get my hopes up and bet the Guardians. I refuse to lose money on the Yankees. They aggravate me as it is. But, yeah, Dodgers rolled tonight, so I'm happy about that. And then, I will have this pod out. As you guys will see it in the morning. We recorded it late last night. But, yeah, we'll have the pod out in the morning. Jack, you'll have your bets for this week. It's like it's Groundhog's Day every time we talk about this stuff. Like, I appreciate your thoughts to go into it. I know everybody does. If the games land, they land. If they don't, it's always a funny reminder to me of
how volatile this is. Yeah, and how much you really don't know.
Every time it's like, and that brought it, like when we go over these games, just quick little thought on this Dodgers Mets game, right? It's 10-2. But it's 7-2 and the bases are loaded and there's no outs and the Mets get nobody again. So like even in the games where you're like, man, you got it all right, you go 4-0, and it's like, yeah, but if you really watch the game, there's one or two batters every single situation that can go the other way. So very rarely, ironically, on a night that we're doing it, do you get a 95% domination game like the Broncos put on the Saints. But most of the stuff, it is volatile. So have fun with it. It's always more fun to just bet less money, no matter what. I say that.
That's how you should do it.
Yeah, and I'm saying that out loud as I remind myself that that is the case. All right, so thanks for doing this. I shall see you guys. Yeah, I'll have a pod out Saturday, and then Sunday I'll break down all the games, and hopefully it's a winning weekend. Appreciate you, man. Good luck to you with your bets. I'll see you next week, and have a good day, everybody.
Sounds good.